A pleasant day to all of us. I'm Marinella Arponce, a Bachelor of Science in Agriculture, major in ABME. Now, I'm here again to present the schedule of irrigated lowland rice and other crops, such as high-value crops, horticultural crops, and vegetables as influenced by climate for some provinces and regions. In theory, the farmer should be able to apply irrigation water when they consider their soil to have reached an acceptable soil water depletion or management allowed deficit. At that time, the farmer should be able also to apply an amount of water that will either fully or partially to refill the soil profile. The farmer may opt only partially to fill the soil profile, and if he or she wants to avoid deep percolation and leaching, and if he or she wants to leave room for precipitation storage. So let me define first what is irrigation scheduling. Irrigation scheduling is the process of irrigation system management to determine the correct frequency and duration of water.
Irrigation scheduling is defined as frequency with which water is to be applied based on needs of the crop and nature of the soil. Irrigation scheduling is nothing but number of irrigations and their frequency required to meet the crop water requirement. Irrigation scheduling may be defined as scientific management techniques of allocating irrigation water based on the individual crop water requirement under different soil and climatic conditions with an aim to achieve maximum crop production per unit of water applied over a unit area in unit time.
Then, what is climate? Climate is the statistic of weather over long periods of time.
Climate it is measured by assessing the patterns of variation in temperature, humidity, atmospheric pressure, wind, precipitation, atmospheric particle count, and other meteorological variables in a given region over long periods of time.
There are two climates in the Philippines, the wet and the dry season.
Rice will take you 4 months to harvest. Usually it be planted to June to October, and some is from July to October, and next is from December to March. Next, maize or corn generally can be grown all throughout the year, wet or dry season, but it is good to plant it on April or rest of the year, usually 100 days to grow before you can harvest. Last is the peanut. We have the peanut for dry and wet season. If you plant it during dry season, you plant from November and harvest it January. And if you want plant during wet season, which is off season, you can plant in June and you can harvest from August.
Last, we will define what is horticultural crops, high-value crops, vegetables, and lowland rice.
Rice is the crop which requires most irrigation. It is a man-made system for water where there is less rainfall. Rice is produced in a wide range of locations and under a variety of climatic conditions, from the wettest areas in the world to the driest deserts. Rice is the most important human food crop in the world, directly feeding more people than any other crops. Rice is unique because it can grow in wet environments that other crops cannot survive in. Every furrow receives water by polypipe on row widths of 38 and 76 inches with average irrigation frequency of being 5.2 days. Average inches of water pump for growing season was 24.52 inches of water with a low of 21.21 inches and a height of 29.7 inches. Conclusions that were drawn from the data suggest that all nitrogen application should be immediately followed by an irrigation to ensure incorporation of nitrogen to reduce potential nitrogen losses. The approximate 5-day irrigation frequency in conjunction with nitrogen applications kept rice growing as well as residual herbicides activated through canopy closure as rice approaches green ring, which is the transition from vegetative to reproductive stages. Water demand by the plant increases, and it is critical to maintain frequency of irrigations. Good yields were achieved by maintaining an irrigation frequency of 5 days through the growing season, 2 locations at irrigation frequency that average 3.5 to 4 days throughout the growing season and achieved good yields. 1 location had frequency of 10 days during the vegetative stage, reduced to every 5 days as rice approaches green ring with good yields. Results of the fields that retain water versus not retaining water will be addressed next week. Rice is typically grown in banded fields that are continuously flooded up to 7 to 10 days before harvest. Continuous flooding helps ensure sufficient water and control weeds. Lowland rice requires a lot of water. On average, it takes 1,432 liters of water to produce 1 kilogram of rice in an irrigated lowland production.
What are vegetables? Vegetables are...
For clarity, the term vegetables or vegetables crops is here meant to refer to a classification of agricultural crops under horticulture. Vegetables are parts of plants that are consumed by humans or other animals as food. Nowadays, most vegetables are grown all over the world as climate permits, and crops may be cultivated in protected environments in less suitable locations. Proper irrigation scheduling should never allow a complete depletion of plant available water. Ideally, many vegetables should be irrigated at 70% of plant available water when 30% of plant available water is used. A good general guideline is an inch of water per week, either by rain or watering. In arid climates, it is double that. In hot weather, vegetables need even more water, up to about 1/2 inch per week.
Today, we're gonna talk about the irrigation scheduling for vegetable production.
There are 6 methods of irrigation scheduling. However, the University of Georgia only recommends 4 of those methods. And today we're going to talk about these methods of irrigation scheduling. The first method of irrigation scheduling is the systematic method, in which water is applied every day for a certain amount of time, or every day the same amount of volume. To do that, you will need that the water is going to be applied, or the volume that should be applied during an irrigation event. Here at the University of Georgia, we do recommend the systematic method of irrigation scheduling as long as it's followed by a blue dye test, in which we're going to track how much water should be applied or how long your irrigation events should be to do not supply water below the root zone of your crop. Or to do that, you can contact your LCU to perform this blue dye test. The second method of irrigation scheduling is the crop evapotranspiration, in which we require the weather condition and stage of crop development to determine volume of water for your next crop development. Is because plants that are in this size or even fruiting like that, we require much more water than plants that were recently transplanted in the field. And here at the University of Georgia, we do have an irrigation app that will provide you this volume of water according to your planting date, and crop. Particularly, this irrigation scheduling method is very accurate and strongly recommended by the University of Georgia. The third method of irrigation scheduling is the soil moisture sensor method. This method requires local properties in their farms, such as field capacity and permanent wilting point. Field capacity is the maximum water that your soil can hold, while the permanent wilting point is the minimum water that your soil holds that is available for your plant. The difference between the field capacity and the permanent wilting point will give you the soil available water, which is the water that your plants will uptake. Once you set up a threshold in this available water, you can start determining your irrigation events. To determine the moisture in your soil, we're going to need to use soil moisture sensors. Here is an existing soil moisture sensor, which is installed in an old bell pepper field and collects data every 15 minutes. So this sensor the time in your history. On the other hand, here we have a portable soil moisture sensor that you can bring to the field with you, in your soil, and how much water should be applied for your crop. There are advantages and disadvantages of using each of, and this will depend on your budget, your area, and your time to move from field to field. Finally, the last method of irrigation method, in which we're going to combine the counter-evapotranspiration and the soil moisture sensor method to apply water, only to supply how much water, or in other words, loss uptake by plants, and do not apply more water than your soil can hold. In other words, you will never apply more water than your soil can hold, or more water than your plants.
What are high-value crops?
High-value crops are crops that provide higher net returns per hectare to the farmer than high-yielding winter rice. High-value crops generally refer to non-staple agricultural crops. They therefore generally have a monetary value higher than staple crops in emerging and expanding local, national, regional, and global markets.
What are horticultural crops?
Horticultural crops are an important source of carbohydrates, proteins, organic acids, vitamins, and minerals for human nutrition. It is used to diversify human diets and to enhance our living environment. Horticultural crops give more return per unit area, more yield in terms of weight and money. Horticultural crops are suitable for small and marginal farmers. Uneven precipitation can cause plant stress during critical growth periods, which will affect both crop productivity and produce quality. Most horticultural crops requires irrigation to minimize plant stress. Proper timing of water applications during appropriate periods can increase the yield and quality of most horticultural crops.
This is my idea all about the topic, the schedule of irrigated lowland rice and other crops, such as high-value crops and vegetables, as influenced by climate for some